So we have these two helper functions, readJSON and writeJSON, and we'll probably have more helper functions before too long, but this will get us started. Let's use them in our handlers. But before I do that, I actually had a mistake, and the mistake was right here on line 21 in readJSON. I had this line saying, if error is not equal to nil, and it actually should have been not equal to io.eof, end of file. And make that change and make sure you import IO up in here. And that was an oversight on my part. A little bit sloppy, and I apologize. But in any case, let's go back over to our handlers.go and let's make some changes to this, okay? So what I'm going to do to start with is to go to the login function, and we'll start right at the top here. So we still need our type, credentials, and we still need our two variable declarations here, but most of this is actually going to get greatly simplified. So let's comment that out, okay? And that means we're not going to be using encoding JSON before too long. We'll worry about the imports in a moment. Let's instead come here and say error is now assigned the value of from app readJSON. And of course, that requires W and R, and it requires what we want to decode the JSON into. And this is where we hand a reference to creds. And now we check for an error. And again, this is simplified as well. If error is not equal to nil, then we'll just say app.errorlog.println, because it's nice to see what the error is in our log. And this is not essential, but I'm going to do it. So I'll print that out. And I'll now set payload.error to true. And payload.message is going to be equal to, same as before, invalid JSON supplied, or JSON missing entirely. And now I just ignore the error at this point because I don't really care about it. And that equals app.writeJSON. And I hand it W, my response writer, what we're writing to. We give it some status, and a good one here would be http.status_bad_request. Okay? And we hand it payload. And that's a lot simpler. So this little bit of code here replaces all of this code right here. And less code is always better, okay? But we're not finished. Down here, we might as well use the same helper function or the other helper function. So instead of that line, which I'll comment out where we marshal our payload, I'll just call my helper function. So error is equal to app.writeJSON. And we're going to write W http.status_OK, which is good enough for now, status OK, and we're going to write payload. Okay, now that didn't save us any code, but it does make things cleaner. Okay, that means we can get rid of this, so it actually did save us some code. There. Now if we go up to the top, we're not using encoding JSON anymore, so we can delete that. And that is a lot less code in our handler. Okay, now it could be even less than that, but as I often do when I'm teaching a course, I want to make things as readable as possible. Okay, so let's move on and let's think about any other helper functions we want. One that might be really useful is the ability to write a specific error message back to the client in 1 or 2 lines of code. And maybe we'll get started with that in the next lecture.